Hello there, Rabbi. I see once again it's snowing in Boston.
And that's not anything unprecedented.
Aha. And as we discussed just before turning on the cameras, you have a bone to pick with the word unprecedented.
It is in the media everywhere. Anytime we have rain, snow, mudslides that go back further than I can remember, we call it unprecedented. Of course, if we go back in history, it's happened before. Everything that's happening has happened. Nothing is unprecedented. There's something about human nature where we just refuse to accept what is. We want to think we can, what, control everything, Joe?
And we always seem so surprised when somebody moves to a house on the beach in a hurricane area, and then a hurricane comes along and blows their house away.
Only second to that is building in a floodplain. Again, makes no sense. We build, and then when there's a flood, we call it unprecedented because we just didn't want it to happen. Of course, it was precedented, if I could say that. You built in an area that floods.
But to stand up for the human spirit and the ability to conquer all, including nature, people who live on barrier islands or in floodplains or build their houses on top of mountains, they say, I'm not going to be intimidated by the weather. I can endure, I can accomplish. Is that wisdom or hubris?
That's hubris. That's excessive human pride. The wind blows, the rain falls. If you like, you can look at the book Ecclesiastes or Kohelet, as we say in Hebrew. For everything there is a season, a time under the heaven, and there is nothing new under the heavens. And that was written thousands of years ago, was the observation that some things come in cycles. And it's hubris to control, to force back barriers. So you build a levee, you build a dike, and then they wear away. The idea is we can rechannel the river, we can move things. That's all hubris. We would be much better served living with and understanding that we can have cycles of the weather. We can have climate change. Hey, look at the history of our own planet, and the climate has changed over the millennia. So why are we surprised that it's changing now? The only question is, how much are we contributing to the climate change? That's a legitimate question. There's no question that climate is changing. And this idea that I can stand up to all these things, or I can modify or change, look at where it's leading. There is no good outcome.
So we need to learn to take advantage of nature's excesses instead of trying to combat them.
Right. Why would we build a city below sea level or at sea level and then put in pumps to pump out the seawater, then build movable dams and barriers to keep the water out? That's hubris. And scripture is just full of accounts of what happened, but we haven't learned anything. As human beings, we don't want to really learn from history. We want to think that we're the exception.
On the other hand, you have the astronaut program and trying to survive in space. And now we're talking about colonies on Mars and the moon. And those are certainly hostile environments. And there's, on one hand, no business being there. But on the other hand, there is the long-term future of humanity is, we are told, requires us to be able to move beyond our planet.
No, I think if we took the money and resources we're spending on living beyond our planet, we could make our planet wonderful and very inhabitable. Look at the expense of all these projects when we could certainly turn them back on our own planet and solve our own problems. To say we need to move humanity to another planet because we ruined this one, instead of spending the money on that, let's fix up this planet. The latest thing I read is the Army Corps of Engineers is blowing up dams because they realized that where they put them, how they channeled the rivers was a mistake. It didn't work. It wasn't good. And it was causing more flooding rather than less flooding. And that's a perfect example of living with and leaving things alone and then watching the patterns. Where does it rain? Where does it snow? Where are the mudslides? Where are the safe places to be? But we're only human, Joe, and we suffer from hubris.
Well, I know one person who doesn't suffer from hubris. I always welcome his advice and his wisdom. Thank you as always, Rabbi.
And rest assured, I am not going to try some life-risking behaviors just to cheat death or prove that I can survive anything. You're right, Joe. That's not me.